Built around the DIY Network's series of shows, Bath Crashers and Kitchen Crashers and so on. There's another show on that the network called, what's it called? Love It or List It. I don't know, has anybody seen that show once in a while? They're kind of annoying, I think, frankly, the hosts of the show, but we watch it from time to time. And the theory of the show is this, that they go to a person's home that needs renovation, and one person says, the female host says, I'm going to renovate it and I'll make it so nice that you're going to love it and want to stay there. And then the other annoying guy comes in and says, no, I'm going to find you a house that will be your dream home that you will, and you're going to want to list your home. And I was watching the show, I was kind of thinking, that's kind of the default setting that most of us have as couples. Usually there's one person who's the fix-it person, and then there's the other person who is the replace-it person. In our home, Brenda is the fix-it person, and I'm the replace-it person. If one of our appliances has a problem, Brenda wants to fix it. And I have to admire her confidence, because she wants to fix it even when she has absolutely no idea how the appliance works. I'm sort of at the other extreme. If something is broken, even if it's something that is very simple that anyone with half a brain could fix, my default setting is I want to replace it. Let me give you an example. I don't know if you've ever had any problems with your garage door opener. Last year, ours went just completely haywire. It was one of those frustrating intermittent problems. Sometimes it worked perfectly, and sometimes it just seemed to have a mind of its own. It would open and close. We would be in our family room, and our garage door is going up and down for some reason. So I called a guy, told him, replace it. But this guy was a fix-it person, and he was convinced that he could somehow, if he just fixed this or replaced one small part, and then he could sort of jimmy the rest of the thing, and he could make it work. Well, against my better judgment, I said, all right, go ahead and do that. And it seemed to work. Now some time goes by, and then a few weeks ago, it started acting up again. I came home from church one day, noticed our garage door wide open when it shouldn't have been, and assumed, of course, that this was Brenda's fault. So I gently suggested when I got in the house that she had, left the door open. And she said, oh, I guess so. It's great when they take blame when it's not their fault. That night, then, we went out to dinner, and as we drive out, you push the garage door opener, and it starts to close, and we watch it. And just out of the corner of my eyes, we're pulling away. I noticed, wait, it went back up again. It's not supposed to do that. So I go and I push it again, and it goes up, and then it comes back down almost all the way to the bottom. And okay, we can drive away. It goes back up again. I mean, we got out. We tried to force it down. It wouldn't work. Had to manually disable it that night so that we could get it down so we could drive away. And then, a note to self, tomorrow morning call and have this thing replaced. Now, Brenda didn't argue with me when I said that that's what I was going to do, but I knew what she was thinking. She was thinking, I can fix that. Mind you, she has no experience whatsoever fixing garage door openers, but she is just wired to believe that she can fix pretty much anything. Well, the next morning she came back from her morning workout. She leaves very early in the morning and came back, breezed into the kitchen where I was having breakfast, and then sort of in passing mentioned, oh, I fixed the garage door. You did what? I mean, I seriously doubted she had done anything of the sort. I thought maybe she got it to work once, but there's no way she could possibly have fixed a device that needed to be replaced. But then she explained it to me, and I had to admit, it made perfect sense. Garage door openers, of course, have these sensors on them so that they don't close on people or on your car. So that if it's coming down, it senses that something is underneath it, it'll go back up again. Well, she said that she noticed when she drove away that there were some leaves stuck to the bottom of her garage door, and she thought, well, maybe our sensors are just so sensitive that it thinks those leaves are a person or a car. So she swept off the leaves from the bottom of our garage door opener and fixed it. And I am so glad that I didn't have to pay a guy to come out and tell me how dumb I was for not simply brushing the leaves off the bottom of our door. Now, there's another reason that I'm glad that my wife is a fix-it person rather than a replace-it person. As you know, for the last couple of years, my body has been sort of broken. I've gone through a number of surgeries and other things, and things just haven't been working the way they're supposed to. Now, it frustrates Brenda to no end that she cannot fix it. She has tried. She makes me eat spinach by the truckload because she read that spinach will help repair damaged nerves. And I've got damaged nerves in my back and foot and other places. And so, I mean, she goes to Costco, gets the forklift out, loads up the spinach, brings it home. I got spinach in everything that I'm eating. Cereal and ice cream and everything else. The fact that I hate spinach makes no difference to her. It is part of her effort to fix me. And as much as we fight about the spinach, I have to admit this, I'm glad that she's trying to fix me rather than to replace me. At one time or another in all of our lives, every one of us is damaged. Our bodies are damaged. Our emotions are damaged. Our spirits are damaged. Our relationships are damaged. And fortunately for us, we have a God whose default setting is to say, I can fix that. I can make that better. If you will put your damaged life into my hands and trust me enough to do what I say, I can make you whole. This morning, our study of Jesus, the life crasher, takes us to Luke chapter 8, where we read about Jesus' encounter with a severely damaged human being. This man's life is completely out of control. He's a danger to himself. He's a danger to everybody around him. No one can control him. No one can reason with him. Nobody can fix him. And then one day, Jesus crashes his life, and everything in him that is damaged is made well. Now, to fully appreciate the turnaround in this man's life, we need to start with an assessment. That's how all the DIY shows begin, shows like Bath Crashers and Kitchen Crashers and all the rest. They start with an assessment of the damage by showing us everything that's wrong with the home or with the bathroom that needs to be repaired. And that's how Luke starts his account in Luke chapter 8, by giving us an assessment of the damage that this particular man has done to himself and to those around him. Here's the account. They sailed, this is Jesus and the disciples, sailed to the region of the Gerasenes, which is across the lake from Galilee. It is on the east side of the Sea of Galilee. When Jesus stepped ashore, he was met by a demon-possessed man from the town. For a long time, this man had not worn clothes or lived in a house, but had lived in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell at his feet, shouting at the top of his lungs, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torture me." For Jesus had commanded the impure spirit to come out of the man. Many times it had seized him, and though he was chained hand and foot and kept under guard, he'd broken his chains and had been driven by the demon into solitary places. Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "Legion," he replied, because many demons had gone into him. And they begged Jesus repeatedly not to order them to go into the abyss. So this is a seriously damaged human being. He is so out of control that those who know him have chained him up, both his hands and his feet. They've put him under guard. But somehow he's broken out of his chains. He's overpowered the guard. He's wandered off into the wilderness. Now, Mark's gospel also records this same event, and it adds a little bit more detail to sort of fill out the story. Mark says this: "This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones." Now, a lot of this sounds pretty bizarre to us. It sounds like something completely out of our realm of experience. But look again at that last verse. Notice what this poor guy is doing to himself. He's cutting himself with stones. Did you know that by some reports, as many as 35% of young women in our country, at some time or another in their lives, cut themselves on purpose? Boys do it too. Men do it too. I mean, that just shocked me when I first heard about it and when I read more about it. And it baffled me. I thought, why in the world would anyone purposely sit down and cut themselves? Here's one counselor's explanation. He writes, "It can be hard to understand why people cut themselves on purpose. Cutting is a way some people try to cope with the pain of strong emotions, intense pressure, or upsetting relationship problems. They may be dealing with feelings that seem too difficult to bear or bad situations they think they can't change. Some people cut themselves because they feel desperate for relief from bad feelings. People who cut may not know better ways to get relief from emotional pain or pressure. Some people cut to express strong feelings of rage or sorrow, rejection, desperation, longing, or emptiness. I mean, it's just an odd reality of human nature that we respond sometimes to pain and pressure by hurting ourselves even more. And yet we do it all the time. A few years ago, I was talking with a recovering alcoholic who was telling me his story, and he told me how he would drink from 24 to 36 cans of beer every Friday night, every Saturday night, every Sunday night, knowing full well that he was doing harm to himself, knowing full well that he was going to lose control and may well do harm to others, as he had done many times. But he said, that's just how I handle things. That's how I responded to my pressure and to my pain, by doing more damage to myself and to the people that I love. He was, by his own admission, he was out of control. When we meet this man in Luke's gospel, he's out of control. He is a severely damaged human being, and he continues to damage himself even further. And the Bible tells us this. The Bible tells us that he is possessed by demons. It is the demons who are now in control of this man, who are causing him to run around naked and to cut himself. Now, unfortunately, the Bible doesn't explain to us how this man became demon-possessed. In fact, there's no text in the Bible that tells us how a person becomes demon-possessed. I've read enough about this phenomenon, talked to enough people about it, to believe that demon possession is something that's very real. Although, to my knowledge, I've personally never for sure seen it. I think I've probably seen it in India a couple of times, but I couldn't tell you that for sure. So I'm not going to pretend that I can explain to you this morning how this works. In fact, I take great comfort from one of the commentaries that I was studying on this passage, one of the newest ones on Luke's Gospel, that says this, quote, "No one is sure how or why demon possession occurs." I thought, good, I'm not the only one who doesn't get this. Well, here's what the Bible does tell us. Here's some of the stuff that we do know about Satan and about demon possession. It tells us that Satan and the demons are angels who rebelled against God. Demons are mentioned more than 100 times in the Bible. Jesus and every author in the New Testament talks about Satan. They tell us that Satan and the demons are powerful, but they are not all powerful. Only God is all powerful. Only God can be everywhere at the same time. Satan cannot be everywhere at the same time. The demons cannot be everywhere at the same time. They are finite, limited creatures. Satan and the demons, the Bible tells us, want to tempt us to rebel against God, just as they did. And here's the main thing to remember is they don't have our best intentions at heart. Their intention, as becomes very clear in this passage, is to damage us and to destroy us. Now, while we aren't told how this man came to be possessed by demons, here's something you might want to spend some time thinking about as you meditate on this passage. What was this man like before? What was he like before he was demon-possessed? I mean, this is somebody's son. There are people who love this guy. He wasn't born like this. At one time, he was presumably a very normal, productive human being. How did he get to this place? How did he become so damaged? If he could have, I'm sure he would have quite a story to tell us. You know, I've got a pastor, a friend of mine, who has a very interesting habit. Whenever somebody stops and asks him for money, he offers to buy the person a meal on one condition. He says, you have to tell me your story. Most of the time, he says, people are eager to do that for him. Not always, but most of the time. They said, sure, I'd love to tell you my story. In fact, he says most of the time they're more grateful to have somebody who will care enough to listen to their story than just to get some money. But this man is about to get something even more than that. He's about to get something more than somebody to listen to his story. He's about to get crashed. We read what this man said to Jesus when they met, or what more accurately the text tells us what the demons said to Jesus. What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torture me. The commentators explain that what the man is saying to Jesus in essence is, just leave me alone. Of course, it's not really the man who's saying this. It's the demons who've possessed him. They want Jesus to leave them alone by leaving the man alone. But Jesus is not going to let the demons destroy the man's life. Jesus cares too much to leave him alone. Whether the demons want to or not, this man is about to eat his spinach. Well, on the DIY network, the crash happens in just 3 days. That's one of the fun things about watching those shows, to see how quickly they can transform a house. Well, in 3 days, a mold-filled, run-down bathroom is transformed into the Taj Mahal of bathrooms, a place you would never want to even leave, never want to go to your job. But this crash doesn't even take 3 days. It happens in an instant. You might remember that the demons begged Jesus not to order them to go into the abyss. The abyss, you might remember, is mentioned in the book of Revelation a couple times as a place where demons will one day be sent for their eternal punishment. Well, here's what happens next in the story. A large herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside. The demons begged Jesus to let them go into the pigs, and he gave them permission. When the demons came out of the man, they went into the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. Notice that Jesus gives the demons permission to go into the pigs and to then plunge those pigs to the death. Johnny Erickson Tada has a saying that goes like this. He says, God permits what he hates to achieve what he loves. God permits what he hates to achieve what he loves. In this instance, God, in the person of Jesus, permits these demons to destroy a herd of pigs. What a waste, we think, right? How unfair for the poor pigs. So why would Jesus allow that? There's probably two reasons. First, when the demons destroy the pigs, it makes it very clear that their intention all along has been to destroy the man. As I said before, we don't know how the man became possessed by demons, but it's likely that in some way the man invited the demons into his life. It's likely that he thought in one way or another they're going to give me power. They're going to give me something that I want. But if it hadn't been clear already, now the evidence could not be clearer that the purpose of the demons is destruction. And here's another reason. It turns out that the pigs were sacred to the people who lived in this particular area. Not only were the pigs of economic benefit to the people, these people worshiped the pigs. This land, I mentioned, is on the east side of the Sea of Galilee. It's not a Jewish land. It is a pagan land. It was controlled by the Romans. Interestingly, a legion of Romans was stationed there. You might remember that the demons called themselves Legion. And can you guess what symbol was on the shields of the Roman soldiers in that area? A boar's head. So when Jesus gives permission to the demons to, in essence, destroy 2,000 pigs, the message seems pretty clear. Jesus is in charge, even in this pagan land. He is the Lord, as we sang just a few moments ago, he is the Lord of all. And as the Lord of all, he wants to know that that the life of this one man matters far more than the pigs of that land that these people call sacred. And I've told you this story before, but I can't help but think of it here. When I was in India the first time, I was sitting on the deck of the person whose apartment I was staying at, just sort of taking in the sights. And I watched a woman who had a hot breakfast in her hand. And I watched her carry it down the alleyway, and she walked over to a cow and fed this hot breakfast to a cow. And what really startled me about it is that just a few feet before that was a beggar who clearly was starving. And she walked past that man to feed the breakfast to a cow. Why would she do that? Because the cow is sacred. In her religion, the cow mattered more than the man. Now, please don't hear me saying that Jesus doesn't like pigs and cows. I don't want that mail. Jesus created all of life. But let's be clear about this. People matter more than pigs, and they matter more than cows. People's lives matter. Now, the next thing that happens in any DIY network crash is the reveal, right? After we assess the damage and see how bad things look, and after the crash, then we finally get to see the finished product. How did it all turn out? Well, let's keep reading so we can see the reveal as it's described by Luke. When those tending the pigs saw what had happened, they ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone out, sitting at Jesus' feet, dressed and in his right mind. And notice this. It doesn't say, and they were overjoyed. No. And they were afraid. Those who had seen it told the people how the demon-possessed man had been cured. Then all the people of the region of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them because they were overcome with fear. So he got into the boat and left. Now, if you've ever watched the show The Biggest Loser, you know that what it looks like for somebody to undergo a dramatic transformation. It's pretty impressive to see somebody who is 430 pounds and completely unhealthy shed 160 pounds or more of fat and become just a completely different person. And when that person comes out on the final episode to reveal his or her personal transformation, the crowd just goes wild. There are cheers and balloons drop, and hugs and congratulations all around. But when the demon-possessed man has his reveal, there are no cheers. Instead, there is fear. It seems to be quite an odd reaction. After all, look at how different this man's life is. Before, he's out of control. Chains couldn't hold him. He's running around the tombs naked and bleeding from his self-inflicted wounds, shrieking at the top of his lungs. And now he's sitting quietly at Jesus' feet, fully clothed, in his right mind. In the Greek, that phrase, in his right mind, means not only that his mind is now healthy, it means that his mind is now able to exercise self-control. He's now able to control his passions and his actions. A man whose life was completely out of control is now in control. And this transformation didn't require months of training and hard work at a ranch in Malibu. This happened overnight. So why aren't the people cheering? Why are they afraid? And why, after Jesus has rescued this man from all of his self-destructive lifestyle, why do they tell Jesus to leave them alone? Well, the text doesn't spell it out for us, but there are probably two reasons behind this strange reaction. First, there's the economic reason. Mark's gospel tells us that 2,000 pigs died when the demons were cast out of the man and given permission to enter into the pigs. Any way you look at it, that's a lot of bacon. The people want Jesus to leave because he's bad for business. But I think there's more than economics at play here. The pig, remember, is sacred to these people. They worship the pig. But now there is one in their land who has made it painfully clear that pigs aren't gods. Pigs are pigs. It's not just their economy that's taken a hit. It is their religion. And so they plead with Jesus to leave them alone, and Jesus does just that. He gets into a boat, and he leaves. There are a number of people I pray for often, people who are not followers of Jesus. And because of what is at stake for them, I want to ask God to somehow make them believe. My oldest brother, Jim, is one of those people. But despite my best efforts for many years, I've never been able to persuade him of the truth of the gospel. And I want to ask God to make him believe because I want my brother to spend eternity in heaven. But God won't do that. He's given us free will. And so when we ask him to leave us alone, God respects our wishes. He honors our choices. He does that. But that's not quite the end of the story. We still need to assess the impact of Jesus' visit to this region of the Gerasenes. One of the things they do on The Biggest Loser from time to time is to follow up with contestants from previous seasons so we can see how they're doing. Do they keep the weight off? Are they still in shape? Are they still following their disciplines? And here we want to know if Jesus' visit to this pagan region on this one occasion had any lasting impact. What happened after this? Well, Luke gives us a clue when he gives us the conclusion to the story. Here's what he says. The man from whom the demons had gone out begged to go out with him. But Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return home and tell how much God has done for you." So the man went away and told all over town how much Jesus had done for him. Jesus came to this pagan area. He crashes the life of a man whose life has been out of control. The man wants to leave and go with Jesus to become one of his followers and one of his disciples. Jesus says no, instead sends him back to be a missionary to his hometown, to his family, to the people around him. Now, the text doesn't tell us what happened. We don't know from reading Luke if anybody listened to this guy. But historians and archaeologists can help us out. And they tell us that the nearby city of Susita became a center of early Christianity. Archaeologists have uncovered the ruins of 5 very large churches from that city alone. From one man whose life was a complete wreck grew an entire movement of men and women whose lives were transformed by the power of Jesus. And here's how that encourages me when it comes to praying for somebody like my brother. I cannot ask God to force Jim to believe against his will. God won't do that. And so here's how I pray. I pray that God will bring somebody into Jim's life, somebody that he knows and respects, who will tell Jim how much God has done to change his life. I pray God will send somebody to my brother whose life has been crashed by Jesus, someone whose life has been out of control and who is rescued by the grace of God, somebody who has been, as we saw in that video, somebody who's been redeemed, who will both show Jim God's power as well as explain to him God's love. When the people of the Gerasenes told Jesus to leave them alone, Jesus got in a boat and he left. But he didn't leave them alone. He never does. He sent them a man, somebody that they knew, whose life had been transformed, to explain to them how Jesus had redeemed him. You know, I'm praying that God will send somebody like that to my brother. And I imagine you're doing the same thing, that you are praying for God to send somebody like that to that person that you love with all of your heart, to that son or that daughter or that brother or sister, that mom or dad. God, please send somebody, that person that I love so much, who will connect with them in a way that I can't, who will explain to them the truth in a way that makes sense to them, a way that I haven't been able to do so far. Use that person to break through their doubts and their questions and their resistance. And here's one last thought. Just like you pray that prayer for somebody you love, might it be that you are the answer to somebody's prayer for the person that they love? You know, chances are that somebody is asking God to pray, to send somebody to a neighbor of yours, a co-worker of yours, a gym workout partner of yours. And remember what Jesus told the man to do. He didn't say, go home and preach a sermon. He didn't say, go home and present an argument for the existence of God. He said, go back home and tell the people there what God has done to change your life. If God has changed your life, don't keep it to yourself. Tell somebody. Because it just might be that you are the answer to somebody's desperate prayers for a person that they love with all their hearts.